So a lot has happened since my first video, at least when I recorded it, which should have gone up about 2 weeks ago, but I have since moved. I'm in a new apartment, and when I moved, I was in the middle of doing a completely different video, which is actually this stuff behind me. It was a little bit ambitious to do so soon, and it was a little complicated, and I completely lost interest in it when I moved. So what we're doing today is completely different. So we're just gonna take that idea and just kind of, because I still think I want to do it. It was a neat concept. It's just not something I want to do in this moment. So for today, I want to learn how to do digital art because I do a good amount of like drawing and painting, but I've never really done anything on my computer, and I kind of thought it would be fun to learn. I actually recently bought a little drawing tablet because I wanted to do shots of me trying to explain sort of what I was talking about while I was designing stuff, which I did in the first video with the lamp. And my original plan was to just kind of film a whiteboard while I was drawing on it, but that looked terrible. So I bought one of these, but basically the cheapest one I could find, and I did a very simple like run with it, but I haven't really messed around with this all that much. And I do have some little art that I made for the my moose icon and the channel banner and stuff, but that was done with my mouse in GIMP, and it was terrible because I didn't know what I was doing or what I should be using. Now I'm going to be using Krita because that's better. GIMP's not even really supposed to be drawing software. You can, but anyway. It's free. It works. I'm running with this. I want to just kind of dive into it. There's two ways that I see digital art, and it's not something I do, so I'm probably leaving all that out. But people do cartoon style stuff, and people do more realistic, but stuff that looks like paintings. So I'm gonna try both in this video and just kind of see how it goes. Just gonna start by getting some random words to use as a prompt. Not actually sure what that means, so do it again. And mighty and eatable, that'll work. Now if I grab a noun too, and I don't know that I really want to do an eatable funeral, so let's grab something else. Passenger works. Let's roll with that. So the way I interpreted the prompt was to get some kind of food-based warrior thing. I was also trying to do a play on words, because you might as well. And I went through some ideas like Robin Ham or a Tupperware wolf, but that doesn't really work with the whole passenger thing. So I settled on a kitchen conquistador, which is less of a play on words, but it's still an alliteration, so it counts. And conquistadors travel, so that gets the whole passenger thing going on, is going to find gold and kill people. I don't remember what conquistadors do. This isn't really a history lesson, as you can tell by the fact that this is becoming a meatball with a strainer on its head. I thought the strainer kind of looked like one of those conquistador helmets, and the rest of it I'm just trying to throw some food in there. So he's got pasta for arms and legs, he's holding a rolling pin as a sword, their mermaid on the front is actually just a loaf of bread. I don't really know why I leaned so heavily into the pasta theming here, but it kind of worked for what I was doing, so it's what I went with. When it comes to the actual drawing process, things went relatively smoothly. I took some time to sort of familiarize myself with some different brushes and techniques for putting down lines. I will say though, a lot of this did feel a bit uncomfortable, and I think that was mostly a scaling thing. The drawing tablet is really small, so every tiny mistake I make gets amplified like crazy on the actual drawing. I would be making these really tiny motions on the drawing tablet, and my computer would be like, "Did you mean?" And mostly that was okay, because there's a stabilizer built into Krita, and it worked out well enough. But trying to draw long, straight lines was a nightmare. Also, this isn't a product review or anything, but while I'm on the subject of problems with the tablet, For whatever reason, when I have this thing plugged in, it just makes the audio on my computer buzz. And I don't know why. I've tried it on several computers, they all do it. And to make my point here, I recorded the sound that my speakers make when this thing is plugged in, so I'm just going to play that. And as you can probably tell, that is very annoying. Anyway, I started to fill in areas of color to get a feel for the drawing as a whole before I added shading or anything. And I have to say, I wasn't expecting a learning curve here. I'm really used to getting the color that I want by mixing paints together, and this is my first time using a color wheel, so it's just another thing that I'm going to need to get used to. Anyway, the only thing left at this point was adding a little bit of depth in with some darker shades and some highlights. I don't know, I'm pretty happy with it. For my first time, I feel like it's not too bad. Although this is one of those times where I'm looking at what I just made and I'm like, I drew an anthropomorphic meatball. It's okay. It's not too late to back out of this. I haven't posted anything yet. It's like, do I really want to make that public, you know? But, no, I mean, it's alright. The next thing I do will probably end up being better though anyway, because I tend to not do this kind of stuff. I do more the style that I'm going to do next. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. I try to have variety in what I paint or make in whatever medium, but I tend to come back to flowers a lot. And a big part of that is because there's some level of perfect imperfection in plants. By that I mean you can kind of screw stuff up and it doesn't really matter because that's just what a plant looks like. If you take something that has an expectation to be straight or a specific curve, like you're painting a house or a coffee mug, and that line comes out a little bit crooked, it's going to be noticeable and it's going to look wrong. If you have a leaf that's just a little bit more wrinkly, it's still a leaf. It's still just as good. It's just not exactly what there was in real life, but that doesn't matter. What you end up with is still a plant. In that way, it's a more forgiving subject to draw, especially if you're trying to learn something new, which right now is what I'm doing. A lot of the way that I'm approaching this is the same that I would approach a normal painting. I drew a real basic framework of how I wanted things to be sized and laid out, and then I did a sketch and started filling things in section by section. You lay down a flat color and start building on top of that to add depth and variety into what you're doing. But there were a lot of things that were still different, and it's an interesting thing to learn. For one, I thought that zooming in was a good thing and having that ability to really scope in on what you're doing, but I realized after a while that I was starting to obsess too much over details that were too hard to see anyway. And then you have things like layers and the eraser tool or the ability to undo, and it makes things a lot easier to try and not be married to the concept. But at the same time, I feel like I have more control over physical paints. It's easier to know how much of a color I'm putting down or exactly how much I'm blending it or mixing in that area, and I don't know, it just feels harder to control with this digital space. I also learned something about the way that I draw that I never really noticed before. I rotate the page a lot, and I never really thought about it, but I make the same motion with my hand over and over again and just turn the paper under it until I get different lines. You can't do that with a drawing tablet, and it made a lot of this feel really uncomfortable to do. I couldn't effectively just move my hand up and to the right the whole time. Also, and I'm gonna put my reference image up for this, which was a photo that I took like years ago because I was like, hey, this is a flower that I might want to paint eventually, and you know, here we are, so it worked out. Anyway, what I want to say with this is, for whatever reason, whenever I'm painting stuff that's red, I always make it pinker than it actually is, and I don't know why, and I normally don't even notice until like halfway through, but for some reason I just can't get my reds right when I'm making colors. But hey, it goes back to the thing I was saying about plants, is it doesn't really matter that this is wrong, because a pink flower is still fine. It looks like a flower. I think the only other thing that I want to mention here is that this time lapse represents just over 4 hours of actual work on this thing. That's far from speedy, but it's a whole lot faster than I would have been with just paint and a brush. I like to say that I'm not actually a good artist, I'm just patient, which is why I think that anyone can make art. Practicing and learning more about what I'm doing just cuts down on the time that it takes to do it. But yeah, let's just bring up the music and finish off this flower. This one took a lot longer, but I'm definitely a lot more happy with it. And like I said, it's more my style of things, so I was expecting this to go a little bit better. Anyway, I think that's going to be about it for this video. If nothing else, I had a good time messing around with a new medium. If you liked it, let me know. And I'll see you with whatever I'm doing next.